Hello, and welcome everyone to our latest Marketers on Fire LinkedIn Live from Chief Marketer. I'm Kaylee Holtgren, Content Director for Chief Marketer and PR News. I'm joined by Esther Mireya Tejeda, CMO of Anywhere Real Estate. Welcome, EM. We're going to call her EM the whole time.
That's great. Hi, Kaylee. It's so good to be here today.
It's good to see you again. So first, a quick word about our Brands and Marketers on Fire series, in case you're not familiar with it. Chief Marketer started the Brands on Fire, Marketers on Fire editorial series a couple of years ago, and the profiles highlight the brands and people that are shaping and pushing and disrupting the industry. So these are editorial features. You can find them on chiefmarketer.com, including EM's profile. That we've decided to do as LinkedIn Lives for some of them as additional content. So we like to talk a little bit about what we initially discussed in the Q&As, but then also go broader on a few topics and maybe touch on some topical things. So first of all, let's get started. EM, tell us a little bit about yourself and your position.
Sure. So I am a veteran marketer. I have been in this business for over 2 decades now. It's hard to tell. I feel like it's gone by so fast. I've had 2 CMO roles, currently Chief Marketing Officer at Anywhere Real Estate, which is the leading residential real estate company, home of brands that you may recognize like Coldwell Banker and Sotheby's International, Century 21, Corcoran, ERA, Better Homes and Gardens. I've previously been Chief Marketing and Communications Officer at Sound Exchange, and I have really been in transformation strategy and other executive leadership roles at organizations like Univision and PepsiCo and Diageo. And I am very excited to have this conversation with you today about one of my favorite topics, which is segmentation, customer segmentation, and emography.
Awesome. So I know that you're a champion of this emography and emographics. I'm not sure how many people out there know what it is. So can you tell us a little bit more about it?
I'm happy to. I might have made up that word. And where it came from is the thought, right, that as marketers, when we, historically for the past 2 decades, we've all been talking about why. Why do customers do what they do? How do we understand the why of their behavior? If you talk to any marketer at some point, this question of why will come up. But if you really think about the modalities that we have been using, certainly for the past 2 decades, to unpack and understand our customers and segment our customers so that we can target them, we've really been first and foremost working through demographics, which was, kind of state of the art when I first started. And then we moved on to the new frontier, which was psychographics. So it was all about, what you liked and disliked and the personality profiles or the mindset of the particular customer. And what is flawed in that is that neither demographics nor psychographics, frankly, answer the question of why. What they do is answer the question of who and what. So who is Kaylee and what does she like? Why does she like those things? Why does she behave this way? That is still very much unanswered in the business of marketing. And so what I have really been thinking about for the past several years is how do we get a layer below the psychographics to go even deeper into the emographics? And that is premised on this idea, right, that a psychological fact, actually, that 95% of human behavior is actually driven by your subconscious. And you may think it's rational, and we may think of ourselves as rational beings, but the vast majority of our choices, our likes, our dislikes, our behaviors, our decisions are driven emotionally, and we're not even aware of it. So what is the magic that is possible if we as marketers and as business strategists, and in my case, transformation strategists, if we're able to really hone in on that level of understanding and nuance of what makes a customer like Kaylee tick versus a customer like Esther Mireya? What is the deep unconscious sort of landscape that makes us function very differently in the world. Although we may very much appear to be in the same demographic or in the same psychographic, but we're still very, very different. And why that is important today is that we're living in a landscape and in a time of society and cultural evolution where customers are more nuanced and more complex and more diverse and fragmented than ever before. And so if you want to be good at precise marketing and you want to be smart about how you spend your money and target the right customer at the right time in the right place, you need to have much more granular segmentation and understanding of those customers. And that's exactly what you are able to do if you start to think about employing and introducing emographics as your third layer, your third modality of customer insights.
Mhm. It's a very interesting idea, and I'm sure the first question on everyone's mind is, how do you put this into practice? Can you explain how it's actually done and how it can drive the business?
So I am championing neuroscience and neuromarketing as the key that can unlock a lot of this work. And it's work that I've already been doing, working really closely with neuroscience firms, behavioral scientists to shape and execute this very different kind of customer segmentation, customer insight, customer research work. I mean, so this is definitely not focus groups and surveys and the kind of things that we have historically as marketers done for decades now to try to understand the profiles of our customers. That the data that you get from something like that is really post rationalized by the customer. So they're thinking about it, they're giving you their rational thought, but it doesn't get to this emographic layer. Now with neuroscience and with behavioral science methodologies, and I'm going to give you two examples that I am a huge fan of and have been employing recently, you can really get much further deep into that person's subconscious. One is ZMET, which is metaphor elicitation. And so to give you an example of how this works, if you remember or if you think about child psychology, this is pretty commonly known, I think. When a child psychologist is with a child, they typically ask them to draw a picture of their family. And so the child is drawing a picture of the family, right? And they're scribbling and painting, coloring, whatever. But the psychologist is pulling so much data from that picture because everything that is in that child's drawing is actually a metaphor for how that child views the family dynamics, the power hierarchies, their role, their own self-image and self-esteem. And you can tell that by, the size that they make themselves versus their parents, how they structure their parents on the page, whether they're on the top quartile or the bottom quartile, whether they include the pets or not, whether the people are smiling or have other type of expression. Even things like whether the family members have arms or they don't have limbs. I mean, all of these things give cues to what is happening unconsciously for that child and how that child feels within that family dynamic. Now, these are things that the child would never be able to articulate, Kelly, right? This is totally the subconscious, and it tells you everything about how that child is perceiving the world and how that child is perceiving his or herself. So we use something very similar to that in ZMET to get to that exact same layer of the unconscious understanding and perception of that particular customer in the world, in society and culture, and also in relation to your brand, your product, your service, your industry, or your vertical. Another great kind of modality that is neuroscience based for emographics is implicit associations. And that's the most simple way to describe that is we all have implicit associations related to certain words and cues. So if we hear green, most of us think go. If we hear red, most of us think stop. A lot of this actually also informs color psychology, which a lot of us already use in branding when we choose colors for brands or colors for our messaging. And we're now also using it in neuroscience to do emographic testing and to create emographic personas and profiles that we can then activate against as marketers.
Can you just explain ZMET to people who might not understand it?
Yeah, so ZMAT is the metaphor elicitation. It's the example of the child with the painting, right? So I'm not going to ask you as a customer or as the child in this case, what do you think about your family? You know, who do you feel is the power player in your family? What is your self-esteem? You know, how would you rank your self-esteem? I'm not going to ask you that, because that would require you to sit back and reflect and give me a rational answer, which may or may not get to the root of what you're really thinking and feeling. With ZMAT, you're using metaphors. In the case of the child photo, the metaphor is the drawing of their family. And so different things stand for other feelings that they're not able to articulate. It's the exact same thing applied to adults, to adult customers, where you're showing them metaphors and they're having a reaction that is tested and is and then analyzed around what the image looks like, right? So depending on the reaction, and not just the reaction, the time of your reaction, the length of your reaction, how long it takes you, how instinctual the reaction is, we can tell a lot about what's going on beneath. And it's nothing that you are precisely articulating. It's everything that we're gathering by the context clues. In other words, the metaphors that are being put in front of you.
Yeah, this is super interesting. We were going to talk a little about the landscape in marketing, and I will generally, and I want to do that. But since we're kind of on this topic already, can you talk a little bit about how marketing analytics relate to this?
So this is all about precision marketing, right? This is about moving away from spray and pray, where you try to create one size fits all marketing strategy, one size fits all marketing campaigns, one size fits all marketing activations, and you're just spraying and praying, right? That it sticks and that you're able to generate the results that you need to generate for the business. We have to move as marketers into really precise marketing. In other words, we can spend less and actually get more if we're just spending our money targeting the right people at the right time. There's a lot of waste that goes into spray and pray, right? So it's really about eliminating that waste. Now, in order to be precise, and in order to have that granularity of, how to differentiate my marketing message, my marketing campaign, my product strategy, my overall business strategy, even the timing and cadence of my marketing. I mean, it really can influence so many things. But in order to have that level of precision, to know what's going to work for Kaylee at what time, what way, and in what message versus what's going to work for Esther Mireya, which might be a different way, a different time, a different product, a different message. I need to get further understanding of how different my customers are. And that layer of deeper understanding of how different, diverse, fragmented my customers are can be understood by implementing emographics. And so emographics is essentially a third supplemental layer of customer segmentation. So you want to segment by demographic, you want to segment by psychographic, and then you want to cut through and do one more cut and say, within this demo, within this psycho, what are the variety of emographic profiles? And that will really get you to marketing gold. And with that, then you can get to being able to analyze and share what is the return on that investment, because you are focusing your dollars, you're focusing your energy, and you're focusing your strategy on where it's going to count most.
Yeah, that's a good point, that it's more like an and rather than an or situation. It's just an added layer, you're saying, on top of the demographics that you already have.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's switch gears to the current landscape in marketing overall. Today, you've mentioned in our discussions that there's no real consensus of what the CMO function is supposed to do. They're being asked to do a lot of different things by a lot of different people, and a lot depends on the organization and the business and the vertical and all that. So what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think this is the hot topic of the day if you're in the business of marketing. The role of marketing, even in the 20-something years that I've been in it, has evolved so much. It's almost unrecognizable from the work that I was doing when I first started in this discipline, to be honest. I mean, it really used to be about the creative, almost entirely about the creative, and the art of it all. And the way we measured and kind of tested our success was based on the quality of the creative. And then eventually we moved on to engagement metrics. And as we became more and more digital and more online, we started to try to measure through clicks and likes and comments and et cetera, which is, I think, roughly where most of us are still operating. The reality is that the world around us has evolved and is evolving at a rate that is unprecedented and that many of us could have never fathomed, right? And in that digital disruption, which has impacted virtually every industry, every discipline, every vertical, it has also impacted how people market, because consumer behaviors have changed, because customer behaviors have changed, and marketing exists in response to and in reaction to what is happening in the world, right? And should be in live response to how people are operating. And how people are operating is different, then marketing should also be different. And we are seeing that with digital transformation and all of the work that people like myself do to take companies into a digital first operating model as marketers. Now, the problem with that is that the rate of that transformation is very different, company by company, industry by industry, vertical by vertical. And so right now, if you go online and just pull from LinkedIn, 5 job descriptions for chief marketing officers, you are very likely to get 5 completely different job descriptions, requiring really different skill sets, having really different scopes, and having a relationship to the CEO, to the CFO, and to the business that is really, really different. And so there's no consensus. And so I think as marketing leaders and business strategists, we are in this unique position where we need, as a coalition of thinkers in the space, to have some agency and start to define what marketing can and cannot do, what it should and should not be in real life right now, as opposed to letting the business landscape define it for us. I happen to believe that marketing, as the single voice of the customer, as the only person, the CMO in the C-suite that actually is doing the customer insights and research, like what we are just talking about, that is getting the live feedback from what is happening in the real world and in the marketplace, that is interpreting and understanding the behaviors of consumers, the behaviors of the world, the way that the world is moving and changing. We have this unique role, actually, in the C-suite to inform business strategy and to inform product strategy and to inform vision planning. And I think the biggest detriment to what's happening in marketing is that the role is being really relegated to like a sales enablement function, which is in service of these things that I mentioned, business and product and et cetera, as opposed to being a function that helps to drive and define those narratives and those goals.
Is that what you term the CMO dilemma, or is there more to it?
That is what I term the CMO dilemma. And in addition to also like the inconsistency of that understanding, even within a singular organization. I've had the pleasure of being a CMO twice now, 2 different organizations. And in both, if I am to compare those 2 different experiences, the expectation of the CMO role was different in one versus another. And that is the case if you just poll CMOs, regardless of industry and sector and geographic location, you're going to see a lot of that disparity. And there's a really kind of broad spectrum of what that means. It largely depends on what is the industry, who is your CEO, what is the board of directors, and how savvy or not are they about business, or not about business generally, but about the business of customers, right? And about marketing, et cetera. And so the lack of consensus is what is driving this instability in the role, which means that you see CMOs getting into their function, having one expectation of the role, and then experiencing something else, which leads to the turnover rates, which we discuss as an industry all of the time, and all of the other challenges there. So it's a really unique and complicated and dynamic time to be a CMO, but also a unique time to make a change. Because I'll tell you what never happens, Kaylee, no one's ever confused about the role of the CEO. No one's ever confused about the role of the CFO, and
Mhm,
no one's ever confused about the role of the COO. Somehow, some way, there
mhm.
is tremendous confusion around the role of the CMO over and over again, sort of broad strokes, right? So we have to, as an industry, we have to solve this, and this has to become a focused conversation.
Mhm. Agree with that. And you would suggest, coalitions? Like, how would you suggest that people, go about doing this or contribute to this idea?
Yeah, well, look, I think it starts with the CMOs and marketers really redefining themselves primarily as business strategists that happen to have a functional expertise in marketing.
Mhm,
At the end of the day, if you're in a C-suite, you're all jointly responsible for stewarding an organization, for stewarding a business. It just so happens that your expertise is in marketing, your neighbor's expertise is in operations, and the person next to you's expertise is in finance. But the idea is that when the entire C-suite gets together, that diverse set of knowledge skill sets will allow the CEO and others to steward that business forward. So you have to always think about yourself, talk about yourself, brand yourself, and frame marketing as part of business strategy. And unfortunately, a lot of times I just don't see that. I hear a lot of marketers say, well, I'm just a marketer. No, you're a business strategist who does marketing as your functional area. That's number one.
mhm,
Number two, I also think marketing as a discipline needs to start speaking the language of the CFO,
mhm,
right? We need to start being able to articulate the results of our work in terms of economic return to the business and economic and commercial impact on the bottom line. I think where we struggle, where marketing has struggled really for as long as I've been in the business, is that there is a language of marketing and then there is a language of business. And so when a CMO or a marketer comes into a conversation about any particular piece of work and all of the metrics are associated with engagement or the quality of the creative or click-throughs or whatever, whatever open rates, whatever it may be in your case, that doesn't necessarily translate to dollars and cents. And everyone else in the C-suite is there to talk about dollars and cents.
mhm,
So you have to figure out how to bridge that gap so that you're talking the same financial language and that you're couching your marketing strategy in fundamentally in a commercially viable, financially productive, revenue generating growth landscape as opposed to an engagement or a creative landscape.
mhm.
I think that makes a tremendous difference in how we're able to evolve the conversation around the CMO dilemma.
So one final thought, we're almost done here, just have a couple more minutes, but you did mention something in passing. I wanted to give you a few minutes to discuss it a little bit more, because it's about career advice for marketers who are aspiring to reach the C-suite. You mentioned that um, that marketers should be thinking first as business leaders and then as functional marketing experts. Can you discuss that a bit more?
So in my case, for example, I'm a transformation strategist. So the thing that I do is I think about and I execute and I plan for major transformations, whether that is an entire rebrand or overhaul of your business, or it's an IPO, you're going public, or you're going private from having been public, or you're diversifying your product portfolio, you're launching new products, you're launching new brands, whatever that may be. That is what I actually do for a living. And I do it through the lens of marketing, right? So, first and foremost, I am a business strategist, and the tools that I use to execute that business strategy and transformation strategy is marketing. And so, my advice to anyone that is coming or aspiring to kind of grow up in the business of marketing is twofold. One, think of yourself always primarily as a part of the business unit. You are there to help the business grow, be successful, generate revenue, drive commercial success, etc. The way in which you do that is through your unique set of skills in marketing.
Mhm,
But marketing for marketing's sake doesn't make sense for
mhm,
anybody. So you
mhm,
have to have that context. That's number one. Number two, the other piece of career advice I give anyone aspiring or already in this business that is wanting to grow and continue is the world around us is changing every day by the minute. this function has become increasingly more digital and technical than I ever could have imagined, right? I'm having conversations over the past 5 years around data engineering, data infrastructure. I'm talking about tech stacks. The language around marketing has turned into investment. You'll hear a lot of organizations say, what's my marketing investment? Because they're expecting an ROI on that.
Mhm.
So get savvy on financials, stay on top of all of the digital technical aspects of this role. That's only going to increase. And I think third and most importantly of all, you have to keep your eye on the prize, which is customer behavior.
Mhm.
That's the differentiating factor between a CMO or a marketer who is able to contribute to that bottom line in the business and one who is unsuccessful at doing that. You have to know your customer and you have to be the champion, the voice, sort of the translator of customer for your business.
Mhm. Relentlessly curious about your customers, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's a good place for us to end, and we're running out of time here. I wanted to thank you so much for chatting with us, EM. I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you for having me. This was great. It's always good chatting with you, Kaylee.
And thank you so much to our viewers who are watching. We'll put this on our website and we'll put it on our social media as well. So you can catch it again if you missed anything. Thanks, everyone, very much. Bye bye.